What's good? How y'all doing this afternoon? Welcome back to the Forever I Love Atlanta Sports Podcast. It's your boy the Don. Here with my partners of crime, King and Tyrone. How y'all doing this afternoon?
It's a good day. Today's been a good Sunday. I ain't did much today. Started watching Man of Steel, I'm a big fan, so I watched Man of Steel today. But that's about it. Nothing much. Chill day.
Went for a nice walk this morning when I got my Monster. Went to the gas station. Got my Monster so I could be awake because I was up early this morning. I was like 4. So this long story. That's how you make this long story.
How old are you again?
I'm 19.
Are you taking Monster?
I'm telling you, I've been drinking Monster. I used to drink Monster before games. That's how long I've been drinking Monsters. Like,
right.
Yeah, I used to be up because I think my energy level, especially coming out of school, used to have we used to travel a lot, especially because Jonesboro was a 4A school, so we was going to Savannah. We had a game in Savannah one time. I'm talking about I was just like sleep. I gotta wake myself up. It's been probably since my junior year, my senior year. I've been drinking Monsters before games and stuff. It's not good. It's not healthy because my heart
ain't good for you, man. Drinking them that young, man.
But I just was energy. I was like, I need energy. And that was the first thing I grabbed for some reason.
Man, 19, I was literally running through walls.
Pretty much.
I had so much energy, man. I'm talking about I can go to bed at 2:00 in the morning and wake up at 6:00, no problem.
I could wake up at 4:35 and be good. I just needed like an hour or two, so I was good.
Man,
and my go-to was like cold water.
In high school, I was in the bed at 10 o'clock, man. even as a senior in high school, I had to be in the bed at 10 o'clock, man. That was just the house rule, man. I had to have all my ironed and ready for the mall, laid out. Because I had to get up at like 5:45. Leave. I had to be out the house by 6:15. Catch the bus. Being in Jersey and all was a little different. I had to walk to the bus stop, get on the local bus. We didn't have school buses like y'all do down here, man. We had the local buses where you had to pay to get on them.
That's crazy,
man.
Wow.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Let's welcome Roshown McLeod, former Hawks player. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Just, enjoying this beautiful Sunday, hanging out at the house. It's usually my day. I cut my grass. Being a city guy, I've taken on the grass cutting routine and trimming. It's been a relaxing thing for me. So I'm glad that the grass is growing again and the leaves are coming out so I can tend to the lawn a little bit, man. That's a relaxing time for me.
Man, you bringing up grass. I need to cut our yard, man. Our yard looking like a jungle.
It's hard right now because this pollen, boy. This pollen ain't no joke right now. Ooh.
Yeah, that's true. That's true on that.
You got to mask up around this time of year to get that grass.
Yeah, I didn't last week, and I paid for it, but this week I'll be ready for it.
Well, with that, man, appreciate you coming on, man.
No problem, man. No problem. Anytime.
Right. If you're new to the channel, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this content out with Atlanta Sports Fanatics, and hit us up in the comment section. As always, come holler at your hometown sports podcast. What's good, Devontae? What's good, everybody in the chat? Devontae said, "Do you show Mr. McLeod your plate you made?" No, I didn't show. I sent him a text message. I threw it down last night. I made some barbecue, some dirt chicken, some fried chicken.
Oh, nice.
Collard greens, some macaroni and cheese. I did my thing last night.
You put bacon in your collard greens?
That's what's up.
No, I put neck bones in there.
Either way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Either way, you should put the bacon in with it, man. It gives it add a little flavor to it, man. Bacon make everything better.
Yeah, bacon. Some people use bacon to fat that, but I try to, neck bones ain't that far off from bacon. Like it's still pork. Yeah. So I know King, he don't like pork. I tried to find some turkey wings to put in there, but I can't find any. So
neck bones. It's good stuff. You got a bunch of different options.
Yeah, that is a bunch of different options. Yeah, I can agree with you there. The collard greens.
Yes.
Gotta love collard greens.
Yeah, I enjoy. My family, we enjoy grilling. We've been using that air fryer. My wife's been really using that thing to the fullest, man. She's been frying up the chicken and cooking some different things in that air fryer. I recommend that air fryer, man. That thing is whew.
Yeah, I got one.
Yeah, we got air fryer.
Just right, crunchy.
We got an air fryer too. But I fried my chicken last night.
That's what I've been doing. I've been putting my wings in the air fryer. That's probably the best type of it. I don't know. I ain't never had wings like that because you usually can fry them, but them wings in the air fryer just oh my god, it's just a different taste.
Crispy.
Yeah, it's real crispy,
and they're not as oily. So
yeah, that's also true. Yeah, they real good, dog. You should try it, bro.
I know. I am, man. I'm trying to eat better. I'm getting on a little diet, man, because I need to. This summer, trust me, I'm gonna be looking real nice.
Yeah, I feel you. I'm trying to get.
Lying.
You got called out.
My girl got on to me talking about you lying. Okay,
Hey,
watch me hit the gym this week. Hey, let's go ahead and get into the news for the week. Go ahead and start off with yes, there's college football that's been being played. Kennesaw State, they took their first L of the season yesterday against Monmouth, and they lost that game 42-17. Segue into college baseball, Georgia Southern. Tuesday they played UGA. They beat UGA, the big school in Georgia, 2-1. Friday they started their series with Louisiana Monroe. They won 4-3, and yesterday they also won against ULM 4-1. UGA, I just talked about they lost against Georgia Southern. They also played Thursday against Vanderbilt. They beat the mess out of Vanderbilt 14-2. And then Friday, Vandy got the best of them. Vandy won that match 5-2. And then yesterday they played Vandy again, and they closed out the series with the win. And they won that game 9-1. Georgia State, they played Mercer on Tuesday. Mercer won that game 5-1. Friday, they opened the series up with App State, and they lost against App State 4-2. And then today, they play App State again. Georgia State baseball program is not looking good. So hopefully they can get revived some type of way. Georgia Tech, this past Tuesday, they played USC Upstate. They lost that game 9-3. They played Notre Dame on Friday. They lost that game 10-9. Yesterday they played Notre Dame again. They lost that game 7-0. They played them again this afternoon. All right. What happened in baseball, TJ?
Hey, our Braves are at 500 now. Started off 0-4. Played a really long day of baseball Tuesday. Started at 11 o'clock. Doubleheader game. Won the first game 6-5. That was probably the most exciting game of the doubleheader. Then they went. It was 6-5. Then I think it was 0-2 the next game. Oh no, Wednesday was a doubleheader. We went 6-7 and then 0-2. On Wednesday. It was you watch baseball for at least the first game was only 7 innings. I think the second game was only 7 innings, but it was still long. And then Friday, we came home, had our first home game versus the Phillies, had some revenge, 8-1. Acuna is hot. He's had the hot bat. Freddie hit a home run. It was just ding. That was probably one of the craziest games. Everybody was hitting well. Yesterday, Philly, we beat Philly again. Today we play Philly again. We play Philly again. We play Philly again. Then team acquired Arnold Arcia from the Brewers for Chad Saboka and Patrick Weigel. And then Miri Adrianzana rejoins the Braves and Camargo was absent. Adrianzana hit a home run on a pinch hit. So now we have 3 pinch hit home runs this year. 2 from Pablo Sandoval and 1 from him, and he hit a booming shot. Pablo, of course, we knew what Pablo was coming to Atlanta for, and that was to hit home runs and be our best hitter. Adrianzana came in the game and hit a deep one to center field. So that was a good thing for us to see that we still got hitters, even if we don't have our starters. Our best game was Friday, but we played really good. That doubleheader was a good game series for us, but the best game in general was the 8-1 game versus Philly.
Okay. All right. And going to MLS, Atlanta United, CONCACAF Championship League. They played a match this past Tuesday against LD Alois, and they won that match 0-1. And pretty much that's it. They will play again this week. And then the season opener for Atlanta United is this Saturday. So they will be playing in Orlando. Oh, man. They playing in Orlando this bad. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna look at some tickets. All right. That's about it. All right. Falcons. They taking phone calls for the fourth pick. We've been saying this the whole time, you guys, that the Falcons they are trying to get out of that fourth spot and get more draft capital. So hopefully we'll hear something soon before draft night. If not, we already know draft night is gonna be crazy.
Yeah, pretty much. Sewell or nobody for me.
Hey.
At 4. At 4. Let me say that. At 4.
Look, anybody but a quarterback. I don't care. I don't care if we draft a kicker at 4.
Bro, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Yo, man.
I'll take the guy out of Notre Dame before I take a quarterback. What's his name? The linebacker out of Notre Dame. I'll take him at 4 before I take.
Come on, Usu.
Yeah, so Usu. Yeah, that dude is a dog.
I like him because he got my middle name. So hey.
That's a good reason to like somebody.
All right.
The Hawks. That's it for really much the Falcons. The Hawks. Last 4 games they went 3-1. They beat the Warriors 117-111. They also beat the Pelicans 123-107. They lost to the Grizzlies, a team they shouldn't have lost to. They should have been 4-0 in this 4-game stretch, to be honest. They beat the Bulls. That was a good comeback win. That one was a good, hard-fought, playoff-like game that we found a way to overcome and win. So that's always good. Currently 5th in the East, y'all. So y'all know me. I've been repping 4th all year. I want the 4th spot so bad because I think we can take Brooklyn and we can give them a series and we could probably win if everybody's healthy. I don't care what nobody say. I got faith in these Hawks right now because of Nate McMillan. Only because of Nate McMillan. 19 games left, y'all, after today, including today. 19 games left. We got to go over 500. That's pretty much – we got to go over 500, and that's the Hawks for you. We got to go over 500 in the stretch. I think Nate McMillan can do it. He's been balling ever since he's been coaching. Like I said, we played the Hornets today at 1 p.m. And if you've seen the list of who's out, T gave it to us earlier. What was that list, T?
It's Trey and Gallo are out tonight. After we just thought we were gonna have a good game. We thought because Trey's been limping a lot, so we knew Trey and Gallo was gonna be out. I think of course our normal Hunter, Cam, Dunn, of course, is all out. Those are our normal 3 out. John is out and Tony Snell. So we literally don't have but Kevin Huerter at wing. Pretty much.
So to start this 500, we need to be and let Curtis goes out there and has a Klay Thompson-like game, which is very capable. He could have one. I got faith he could have one, but
Kev going for 25 tonight. I got it. Kev going for 25 tonight. I'm calling
Cookie.
40.
Cookie, look at this comment by Cookie. Cookie said if someone else get hurt, Mr. McLeod gonna need a 10 days. Yeah, you got to suit up, man.
Listen, I'm older than Vince Carter, so if he done, I'm done.
Wow, that's crazy. You older than Vince Carter?
Yeah, I'm actually 2 years older than Vince Carter, even though we came out in the same draft, but I'm 2 years older than him.
Yeah, I was gonna say because he was in your draft class, and that draft class, well,
it was loaded.
We had a good draft class.
That was a stacked class.
Yeah,
Dirk, Paul Pierce. We had Mike Bibby, Rashard Lewis, Al Harrington. We've had Dirk Nowitzki.
Yeah.
We had some good players in that drive. Antoine Jameson, Vince. I'm trying to think who else. Matt Harpering.
Yeah.
We had a solid class, man. We had a real solid class. Tractor Trailer, Michigan.
Tyronn Lue was in that class.
Ty Lue, yep. Ty Lue. It was a good draft. A good draft.
So let's go ahead and ask some questions real quick. So, what was your background? I know you just talked about you grew up in Jersey. So, tell us
Mm-hmm.
about family life growing up. Up there in the north.
Well, I grew up in a single parent home. I had a sister from my mom and my dad. My dad was around. We interacted, but he just wasn't in the home. Probably that ended at around maybe 12 years old, 13 years old, where he and my mom split. Um, but I was the oldest grandchild. I was the oldest child, so I had a lot of responsibility growing up in the inner city. I mean, as a 6-year-old walking to school, with some other 6-year-olds. I mean, you just can't do that here in Georgia or anywhere, right? For that matter, nowadays. But
You can't do it
you
nowadays. I
know,
remember. I remember doing it. Me and my brother, we used to walk to school by ourselves, and like these days, I'm like, I don't
and
trust
it was
none
a
of my kids
community. But
walking
back then,
nowhere.
it was a community. It was a community
Yeah.
back then. Like, the neighbors looked out for each other. So, nowadays you don't even know who lives next door to you unless you just happen to bump into each other taking the trash out here and there. But back
Mhm.
then, it was more of a community neighborhood than it is today, where social media has kind of taken over that platform of friendship and conversation. So it's been a little bit different. So we just gotta continue to build on how we get back to those things. But it was tough because it was very, very crowded. There wasn't a lot of things in place to show opportunity, unless you played sports at the Boys and Girls Club or down a local park league or something like that. I grew up playing baseball. I was a little short, chunky kid. My nickname was Roly Poly, which is funny.
Oh man.
Uh, and as I've gotten older, that name stuck with me. They just took off the Poly part and just started calling me Roly. So if somebody ever tell you they in my family and they call me Roshown, they're not telling the truth. But that was the way to do it, because it bled over into my Duke days, where my teammates called me Roly Poly because they heard my family calling me Roly Poly. So it's all over the place. All my best friends call me, Ro. And then when I got to playing basketball, probably was around ninth grade. I played baseball all the way up to my freshman year of high school. Then the summer going into my freshman year, I started playing basketball. Grew. I went from like 5'7" to about 6'1" over the summer.
I wish.
And hey, man, it hurt really bad. I can tell you that it hurt bad, and not having a whole lot of money. It did a number on my wardrobe, as you probably
That's
would.
You grow like that when you grow like that in like one summer, and growing up in a family that don't really have it like that, like you
Yeah,
gonna be wearing some too tight clothes, your pants gonna be in the water,
yeah. You had
like
your school clothes and you had your play clothes. So you better not mix them together, man, or you get in trouble. But so as I started to grow and play basketball, I really didn't enjoy playing basketball. I didn't watch basketball very much growing up. I just played because my friends played, and you know, I, I was fortunate enough to play at St. Anthony's High School, which was at the time, one of the top 5 programs in the country. And they were ranked. They just won the national championship in 1989 with Bobby Hurley and Terry DeHare and Jerry Walker, a kid by the name of Roderick Rhodes, who was a freshman, who was one of my teammates. Uh, and he was the number 1 player in his class, and him and Jason Kidd kind of juggled that back and forth. And I had a chance to play against this guy every single day. He was like LeBron James back then, 6'8", could play the 1 through the 5, shoot, athletic, pass, just really great athlete. And so for me, being a newcomer to the game, playing against the number 1 player in the country every single day, I had no choice but to get better. And being an inner city kid, I'm not going to just let you beat me up all the time. That's just not going to happen. So, the toughness that a lot of inner city kids had back then, it came out. and it forced me out of my comfort zone on a day-to-day basis, where I had to work on my game. I had to, have the confidence to believe I could win. And, and I ended up matching him at some point in my career in passing, which was for me really a great accomplishment, because it always reminded me of where I started. And that being, having that humbleness always let me know that there was room for improvement as a player. So, I went through high school. I lost 3 games in high school,
Man,
and
y'all had a powerhouse.
yeah, I lost 3 games in high school, and I always is number 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the country. I don't think I've ever been lower than number 4 in the country as a high school player. As a high school team. I was ranked. I was in a great class, man. I was in the class with Tim Duncan and Jeff Capel and Ray Allen and Marcus Camby and Brevin Knight and was Antonio McDyess and Ty Lue and we had a great senior class. Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace.
I love me some Stackhouse back in the day, man.
Oh man, yeah, we had a great class, man. So we didn't have all the camps that they have today. We just had Nike and Adidas. Those were really the only 2 camps. So you got a chance to play against the best players every time you went out. AAU wasn't as big, but it was growing. They had a few national tournaments. The nationals was actually the biggest tournament you could have, and then Vegas started to get bigger. I think they call it the Adidas 64 now, but it didn't have a sponsorship or anything at the time. But that's where you saw the best teams on a night, day in and day out. And I had four pros on my AAU team, man. We were really, really good. And I played with 14 Division I players on my high school team and on my AAU team. So on a day-to-day basis, I was always competing against the best of the best of the best, which it accelerated my growth process. Most guys play basketball in 4th, 5th, 6th grade, and they compete at a high level or whatever. But I played at 9th grade. I quit as a 10th grader because I didn't enjoy it, and then I got back into it the summer going into my junior year. But I was about 6'7" by then, and so the game started to come easier because I learned it the right way from the beginning. Most times you go through bad habits and then you got to break those habits, which take more time before you kind of fall into your own little space and understanding the game. I was fortunate to have a great coach and Bob Hurley Sr. and then play against the best players on the night in and night out basis, day-to-day basis down the park. So my growth process was accelerated. I went from don't pass that guy the ball to get that guy the ball overnight, it seemed like. And so it was enjoyable it's enjoyable now to think back about the process that I went through. And my goal is always, how do I recreate that for young men who may not have the notoriety today when I'm coaching, or if I'm training or developing a player. How do I get them to play for something bigger than themselves so that they can accelerate their growth process and teach them the right way? That's always something that I try to lean towards when I'm coaching and when I'm training a player or something like that. And I've been fortunate enough to work with guys like Malcolm Brogdon here, being Georgia, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek Favors and Jordan McRae played at Tennessee. Brandon Mobley, who played at Seton Hall. I coached with the Atlanta Celtics. I coached with the Georgia Stars. I coached, with the Hype program here in I've coached some really talented players, man. So being able to share my experience and help them develop, it has been, a good feeling for me to be able to take what I've learned from the Hall of Fame coaches that I played for, which is on every level. I've had a chance to play for Hall of Fame coaches, which is awesome, and take that information and share it with other players, because nowadays it's more about, developing and you're with your trainer. It's not necessarily your coaches that are teaching you really how to play basketball nowadays. But I think the balance between the two, in order for the game to stay stable, it needs to, we need to start having some players and some coaches develop where the players trust their judgment. In high school level, most of the coaches are teachers that take over the game. They just need a coach, and somebody takes the job. They don't have high school coaches coaching. They have teachers coaching, and the teams that win have coaches. Or they got somebody on the bench next to the teacher that's doing most of the coaching so that they can win some games. We all know who those schools are. So we watch them because they're going to have the best talent. They're going to be the most exciting to watch. And they're going to have a guy that we're going to see in the future that's going to, shock us or go far enough where we can become a fan as a college player and a pro. So that's kind of like a condensed version of just my process up to that point of high school, and how my career had gone, and what motivated me and what pushed me to be the player I eventually became.
Yeah, go ahead, Don.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you said something interesting about coaching. Explain your differences in coaching from a trainer and an actual coach. Because as you see, we had a big coaching change with the Hawks. So how much of an impact of that do you think was coaching and the players?
I think it was just knowing the organization, knowing Coach McMillan and previous coach. It was a combination of both. Sometimes coaches being so young, they may not have the ear of the best players sometimes, and that could have I'm guessing, but just based on what I see, they don't always have the ear of the best player, and the best player may want to play a certain way, and that's not the way he's being coached. Players have a lot more power today than they did in the past. Before, you get rid of the player, now you just get rid of the coach, because players are seen to be more valuable than the coach these days, which I think they're both valuable. It's a marriage. The husband's not more valuable than the wife. Whoever's doing their job better, that's who's the most valuable. And you got to be smart enough to run with it. But I just think that the way I saw Trey being used, it was more of kind of, we need you to be like a Steve Nash type player where you get guys involved. Because hearing, it's just reading some articles from some of the other players, wanting them to pass the ball more, whatever. And him wanting to be a player similar to Russell Westbrook or LeBron or Giannis, where he's controlling the tempo of the game when he's in the game. I mean, that's more of the way that the game's being played today. But as a understanding the difference between coaching and training, trainers develop your skill sets. Coaches put all your skill sets of all the players together to get the best outcome.
It's all elevating the players. Come to a common goal to win championships.
Right. It's using those skills to get the best outcomes. Mm-hmm. So as a coach, you got to be able to put your players in a position to utilize their best skill sets. We can work on our weaknesses, but as a coach, that's what a trainer's for, to not necessarily to work on your weaknesses. They're weaknesses for a reason. Now you can like the more you stay away from your weaknesses, the better player you're going to be. That's just a reality. And sometimes we find guys trying to prove that their weaknesses aren't weaknesses, which stunts their growth as a player most of the time. And that's not to say you can't ever be good at it, but it just might not be that part of your development or growth as a player at this point. I was never a great ball handler, but you couldn't take the ball from me and I can get any shot I wanted to. And, if I was playing today, I would play the 5 and the 4, where I played the 3 and the 2 as a player. I played in the wrong era. If I could play the 5 and the 4, I'd be worth $90 million. But because of the way I shot the ball.
That's another good point. What differences do you see in today's game that since when you played are different than now?
team personalities. I think nowadays sports have become more entertainment, so everybody follows the same trend of if we're gonna shoot threes and we're good at it, everybody needs to shoot threes because metrics say, we need to shoot threes. You can't win if you're playing a brand of basketball that don't fit the talent that you have. You know what I mean? You can take as many threes as you want. If you're not making them, it doesn't matter. And that's the way that the game is played today. I would love to see a guy like a guy like Shaquille O'Neal show up and just dominate, so that we could understand why that's so important. But the problem is nobody teaches that anymore. So no one's encouraged to be that because they feel like they'll get pushed to the side. But when you're a force, it doesn't matter what happens. You just take over. And I would love to see a guy that's similar to a Shaquille O'Neal come in and just dominate a space, because there's a space for it right now. Nobody's doing it.
Ain't nobody playing defense. That's the thing, man. You
Well,
see
it's not
games
that I disagree with that to an extent. I think people are playing defense. It's just harder to play defense because of the way that the rules are shaped. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you can't touch anybody. You can't, like I think referees, they given, you used to have 2 refs. Now you got 3 refs, but they make more worse calls. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not to blame refs. I mean, everybody make mistakes, but it's almost like if a ref makes a mistake, his teammate should be able to fix it, and they don't do it enough, in my opinion. But I think defense is tried, but it's hard when you're out on the island and you can't help, or you can't put your hands on people. And that the way that players are developing today, everybody is putting the ball on the floor. Like you didn't have to close out on Charles Barkley for the drive. I mean, not Charles Barkley, Charles Oakley. Now Charles Oakley's not on the court. So, you got guys like Joel Embiid, who could put the ball on the floor. And he is in the post some, which makes the Sixers a tough team to beat.
Yeah.
When he's in the post and mixing it up, shooting, making, forcing double teams, getting open shots, stuff like that. I think he's a valuable piece for them when he's doing that. But just as far as the coaching, we just gotta use our players correctly, and not try to follow the trends of other teams that are having success playing whatever their identity is. The teams that understand who they are as an identity win games, and then that's the bottom line. And some identities work better against other identities, so you got to recruit or pay for the players that that can do their style better than the other team can do their style.
and that goes back to what you just said. Like, we had Coach Bud here. We was trying to replicate what the Spurs was doing. That didn't work for us.
Yeah, and we didn't have Tim Duncan. We didn't have Tony Parker. We didn't have any of those guys. We didn't have Ginobili. So it worked to a certain point. And I think Coach Bud's a really, really good coach. I think he does well. He wins a lot of games, but you still got to have that player that Kyrie Irving that can break the play and force teams out of their comfort zone defensively. The Damian Lillards, the Steph Curry's, LeBron's, obviously, James Harden. When you got players like that, man, I mean, that's why I think Brooklyn is going to be hard to beat, because they got 3 players that can just step out of the offense and force you to do something defensively that you can't prepare for. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead.
Let me ask you this about Brooklyn, though. Do you think when playoffs come, they'll have enough time under their belt playing together that they won't have chemistry problems? That's what I'm banking on.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. I mean, chemistry and health I think are their 2 worst enemies right now. Because of the level of play that those guys are capable of playing at, and James Harden, KD and Kyrie, and then you just added LaMarcus Aldridge, who's kind of middle of the pack guy now, but he's still valuable, and Blake Griffin and Jeff Green. They just got some really, really good pieces. Health is going to be the biggest issue for them, and I think playing together. But you can fix that because you can play two of them at a time. You don't necessarily have to play all three at a time. You can substitution patterns can help put that in perspective where you got KD and Kyrie playing at times, or Kyrie and James Harden playing at times, or KD and Harden. You don't have to have all three guys on the court bumping heads. You know what I mean? You can always just have two, and then have a guy who's a role player, like any of those shooters that they have, and guys that can play and sometimes get you 25 points. Like what's the kid name that's plays the point? Man, Den. How do you pronounce his name?
Dinwiddie.
Yeah, like a guy like that, man. He can get you 25, but he's big. He's athletic. He can play defense. So he's a great piece to have when if you do play Kyrie, you can throw him in there, not necessarily to replace Harden, but he can play defense, he can make shots, and he can make plays, and he doesn't need the ball to be good.
So I wanted to ask you, you were talking about somebody like Shaq, having that ball dominance, being able to create their own space. What do you think about Zion? Because Zion's been scoring like 30 points strictly in the paint.
Yeah.
So what do you think about him as maybe being that next Shaq kind of sort of player?
He's too small, short rather, but I think he has the floor, and he is, like I said, there's a space open for him to do what he does. He's shooting something like 65% from the field, man. Like, that's unheard of. And because people are not used to playing post defense anymore, his quickness is unbelievable. I haven't seen that type of quickness since Charles Barkley in his young days, in Philly and at Auburn. But, his quickness is unmatched with just off the spin, off the catch, things like that. And his body control at the rim is unbelievable. And so he just has to, but he's too short. I'm talking about a center, a 7-footer. Zion doesn't rebound well enough to do what I'm asking.
What about Joel Embiid?
I think Joel Embiid can be that, but I think coaches are forcing him out to shoot the three because that's the way that they want to play. But when he's an MVP candidate, just do what you want. And if a coach isn't smart enough to use it, then they don't need a coach. But because I'm getting rid of the coach before I get rid of Joel Embiid. So
that's true.
All that to say, I think Embiid is the closest thing to it, but he's still, I think his personality takes away from his dominance sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with you. So how was your time at Duke? Explain your time at Duke.
I actually transferred to Duke, man. I played 2 years at St. John's in New York, being a Jersey guy. I played 2 years at St. John's, and then I was the first transfer Duke had ever taken. So it was a little bit scary, a little bit nervousness there because they had never entertained the transfer before. So they didn't really know how it worked. It was kind of like an experiment, but the trust I had in listening to Bobby Hurley, who played there, knowing what Duke was able to accomplish, winning championships and playing in the ACC, and it was a chance I was willing to take, and knowing how well Coach K utilized the guys at my position, the Shane Battiers, the Mike Dunleavys, the Grant Hills, everybody thinks that the point guard is Coach's favorite position, but it's actually that stretch four position, the Leitners, myself, guys who could play inside and out, and it was a matchup problem for defenses. So when I got to Duke, Coach had hip surgery and he was out, or back surgery. I forget what it was. I think it was, and they didn't have such a good season. And then I transferred in, and Coach came back, and I think we finished like 16-14 the year that I sat out. And but I played in the blue-white game, and I think I finished with like 25 points in the blue-white game in like like 15 minutes. And, everybody was excited and they were just like, man, this guy can't play yet. And so, but that was the biggest growth in my career, that being able to work with guys like Quinn Snyder, who's the head coach of the Utah Jazz right now. I worked with him on my ball handling. I worked with him getting to spaces. I worked with him about, getting my shot and, moving transition from one move to the next on a day-to-day basis. I got a chance to work with Tommy Amerka, who's the head coach at Harvard. He worked on just my vision and becoming a better playmaker, becoming a better passer. And Johnny Dawkins just helped me become a better scorer, a more dominant scorer. He's the head coach at I think it's UFC. It's one of those South Florida schools. And Dave Henderson,
UCF?
UCF, something like that. And then David Henderson, who's a scout for the Cleveland Cavaliers, was also on that staff. And he helped me with my physicality. He helped me get in better shape. He helped me, fight through fatigue. He helped me learn how to, because, when people get tired, it makes cowards out of us all, but that's a talent to be able to fight through fatigue. And the guys who understand how to fight through fatigue are the best players in the fourth quarter. And so that's something that a part of the game I don't think people even think about unless you're getting paid to do it. And the combination of those four guys, along with Coach K and my teammates, I was able to become a better version of myself because I was always on the practice team, trying to be the other player's best player. So if we were getting ready to play against Tim Duncan at Wake Forest, I would watch Tim Duncan film and I would try to imitate Tim Duncan when in his position, when we was going over their play sets and how we were going to defend him. And, no matter who we played, whether it was a guard or whatever, I would always be best player and I would try to imitate what they did. And so doing that against my teammates on a day-to-day basis, it helped develop me as an all-around type player. So my next year when I was able to play, we spent a lot of time at number one in the country and we ended up losing like 3 or 4 games that year. But that's my time at Duke was spent very, very wisely and really strategically to become the best version of myself, to get what I want, which was to play in NBA.
I'm on mute. I was on mute. So talk to us about the background and not the background, like draft night. How was that for you? What did you do? Did you go home? Did you go there? How was that for you?
My draft year was in Seattle. I wasn't going out there. Seattle's a whack place, first of all. Like if it was in like Miami, I think I would have went or Chicago, but I mean, Seattle, I'm not going to Seattle or Vancouver. I think it was either Seattle or Vancouver. Either way, it was terrible. And I wasn't spending all that money.
The same thing. So.
This is horrible. And so what I did was the place where we ate our pregame meals at in high school, they had a restaurant. And so I had my family and friends. It was like maybe 300 people all in this restaurant. And we were celebrating, eating, watching the draft. And I kind of knew where, the 3 places I would end up. And as guys were picked, I kind of knew where I was going. So everybody else was way more excited than I was. Once I saw certain people leave, it was like, all right, I know I'm next. So, once I seen Houston take a pick out of left field, I think it was a European guy who played about 6'8". I don't think he ever came over to play. When, Antoine Jameson went, Vince Carter went, and then, once Matt Harpring went, I knew exactly where I was going. I knew I was going to be a Hawk. Matt was picked about 15th, I believe. So once Matt was picked, I knew I was going to be that next small forward that was going to be taken. So I was excited to play for the Hawks. I wanted to come to Atlanta because at the time with Steve Smith, they had a lot of veterans, and I was the lone rookie, but they had a lot of 10-year, 8-year, 9-year vets that I could learn from. And they didn't have a natural small forward. Tyrone Corbin was the small forward, and he was about 13 or 14 years in. Grant Long was about 12, 13 years in. so I got a chance to learn a lot from those guys. They taught me how to be a professional. Steve Smith and Mutombo, all those guys. So I wanted to come play here in Atlanta, and obviously Atlanta is a great city. So I wouldn't be bored like I would have been in Vancouver or Seattle at the time. But so that the draft night was exciting, man. So I got to share it with my family and friends. The newspapers. And the funny thing is, my hometown newspapers didn't really have a whole lot of faith in where I was, me being a first round pick. There was a lot of criticism because I was still such a young player. You got to think, by the time I was drafted, I only played six years of basketball, and a lot of it was learning. So hometown papers didn't really have a lot of confidence in me. They thought Al Harrington at the time, who played at St. Pat's, and he was actually in my draft leaving high school. Now I'm a senior in college. He's a senior in high school, and they thought he would be picked and be a better player than I was. But and Al Harrington had a great career with the Pacers and some other teams, but he's we're good friends and all. But they just thought Al Harrington would be the every newspaper was at his place instead of at the restaurant where I was, and he ended up being I think a second round pick or a late first round pick, maybe like 27 or something like that. But I went first, and I got a lot of apologies after that, which was pretty cool.
So going back to your days at Duke, Coach K, you think he's like one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time?
Yeah, I think there's an argument for that. I think definitely one of the top 4 or 5 in my book. Just the things that I learned from Coach on a day-to-day, practice, games, time management. He just, and the balance between allowing your players to make their own decisions. A lot of times, like, you would think that Coach had a hand in every decision that was made. And most of the time he let his captains and seniors, based on our culture, he allowed the best player to make the play. And, him being a coach, he's going to be a part of it, but he allowed, Christian Laettner, and Grant Hill to say, I can make the pass. I'm going to catch the ball. I'm going to score. Jay Williams, he just allowed guys in those situations to take over and not, walk them, he felt like he didn't have to walk and hold their hands through in the game situations. I was in that situation a couple of games during the season. And, so I think Coach did an excellent job in balancing when to coach and when to let players play. And I think that makes a great coach, when you can step back and let your players make choices and make decisions. I think players really enjoy that, who are who they say they are. You know what I mean? If you got a guy who's fugazi, he's not going to enjoy that because you put him on spotlight. I think that's what makes coaches great, when they have that balance of letting players make plays and then putting them in positions where you can still trust that they're going to make the right decisions.
I want to ask. So you were just talking about Coach K and coaching in general. I want to ask you a question about. I'm taking to the Hawks. So I'm going to take it now. Modern Hawks. The coaching change we had, kind of sort of what King said. Do you think how Trey's playing now under Coach Nate and just the coaching change in general, do you think it changed the culture of the team, or it just changed how the team is playing?
Well, whenever you have a coach that's different, like personality wise, Coach McMillan is very, very different than the coach that just left.
So Pierce.
Yeah, McMillan is an old school coach, and he works really hard. And obviously today you got load management, you got a lot of things that come into consideration, and I'm sure he, it does a good job in balancing that. As I remember, one of the funny things about when I was coming up, playing for Lenny Wilkins as a rookie, because we had so many vets, we didn't practice that much. Those guys played, and so we played so many games back to back that you really couldn't have a full practice. So if you were a young player, you had to make sure you got your workouts in to stay ready for the game. So I would come over and I would run at the time the Georgia Dome, and then when we got Phillips Arena, I would run the Phillips Arena steps, and I would make sure I got my lifting in. I made sure I got my shots up. I made sure I worked with the coaches, watched film, learned the playbook better, and so that when things happen, I could be there and be available. I could remember having matches of 5-6 games at a time where I would average 17, 18, and then I would play 5 straight games. Just because Lenny didn't like playing rookies, not because I wasn't playing well. But it taught me to always be ready. And then in the following year, I was able to start for a majority of the season, and then my third year, I became a starter. But your culture is always going to change when the personality of your company or your team changes. And I think that Nate McMillan brings a little bit more of a veteran presence than Coach Pierce did. And Coach Pierce was, even though he had been around as an assistant coach, that second chair is a little bit different than the first chair. So he was still trying to figure it out. And I think eventually Lloyd Pierce is going to be a very, very good coach and have a lot of success in the league. He's going to get more opportunities. I just think that it was a tough job and a tough situation having so many young players and not enough. Like Steve Nash is a young coach, but he's got veteran players. So it might he can make a couple mistakes and those players can make up for it. And I think that's where Coach Pierce had a lot of complications, where if he made a decision, the youthfulness of the team didn't always make up for a decision that was made that probably wasn't the right time to make.
All right. So your rookie year, y'all, the Hawks. I remember the Hawks made the playoffs. Tell us about that experience, right? That just coming in year one, and just because the Hawks was successful like during the mid '90s, and like I know '99. I don't think we made the playoffs. Not '99.
That's when we traded everybody.
Yeah, that's when they
they had a long stretch of not making the playoffs until probably like Joe Johnson came like 06. 98, that year, my year was the last year we made the playoff for like a 7 or 8 year stretch. But it was exciting because obviously got a chance to play. Well, the first round we played the Pistons, who were, at the end, Joe Dumars was at the end of his career. They had a guy named Grant Hill, who, was a special player, set the take on the torch of the best player in the league and, take over the Michael Jordan reign. And they had Jerry Stackhouse. I mean, Christian Laettner went from the Hawks and played for the Pistons. So being able to play the Pistons in the playoffs and win at the time, I think it was a 5-game series because they didn't have, it wasn't 7-7-7, it was 5-7-7-7 at the time. And getting in those games, and then the following series playing against the New York Knicks in the Garden.
Man, you got to bring that up, man. I was so mad about that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was. They were on fire, man. Being an 8th seed, they played their best basketball at that time, and Sprewell and Allen Houston and those guys, they were hitting shots and they were hard to guard. They had a lot of wing players, and they were younger than we were, obviously, and I didn't get to play a whole lot in that series, but when I did, I put some points on the board. But it was exciting as a rookie to make the playoffs. It was a great experience because it gave me a vision of what you play for. When the competition level elevates. Like, you talk about the regular season, you talk about the playoffs, you talk about the finals. I was fortunate to play on teams who got all the way to the finals and Eastern Conference play, and it elevates the competition level. Every time you win a series, you got to bring a little bit more. and you
That's a
can't just.
story of Atlanta sports right there. We all in the playoffs. We always get beat by the team that's going to play in the final championship game.
Yeah, that's funny you bring that up. Yeah, that's so funny you bring that up. But your superstars are the ones that elevate you, because having had a chance to play with a guy like Allen Iverson in Philly, I mean, he was a freak of nature, man. That guy was just, watching him play was a movie every single night, where he's getting 40, and you knew that the other guys on the other team couldn't really do anything about it. So how do you support a guy like that, is understanding your role and really just, bringing everything you got, leaving it all out there. And if you get beat, you get beat, but you don't want to lose those games and feel like you had something left in the tank, and feel like you didn't leave it all out on the floor.
Man, I would just go bring up Iverson, because I know in 2001 you played with Iverson on that 76ers team, man. Like how was Iverson as a person off the court? Like we know the Iverson, but just you hanging out with this guy, on a day-to-day basis, before practice, if he didn't complain about practice. But just tell us about Iverson, man.
Yeah, that was he didn't complain about practice. That dude, he was at practice.
Exactly.
He might not have practiced every day, because if you got a guy that's 5'11", 6 feet, maybe 165 pounds, soaking wet. If he's playing 42 minutes night in and night out, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, why would you? What is practice for? And that's what he meant. If you haven't played the game, that's not something you would pick up based on how he said it. But there was no reason for that guy to practice. I mean, as long as he watched the film and he came ready to play, he was the heart. He was the heart and soul of the team. And so the guys around him knew that. And so you just had to make sure that you played your role to the best of your ability, so you could support what it was that he was going to do night in and night out, which is what made that team really, really good. But as a person, man, he was a real loyal guy. His friends were important to him. His family was important to him. And a lot of people don't see that side of him, because they only see the paparazzi side, the narrative that people put in play, and that could be dangerous. I mean, be a guy that the world knows, and you can't have a normal day. That could get frustrating sometimes. And so when you got people who are obnoxious because they feel like you owe them something, and if you're having a bad day, sometimes you can create the situations that he's been in. But for the most part, from what I gathered, the loyalty part that he had was unbelievable. That was probably one of his biggest traits as a person, as a human being, was the loyalty that he had with the guys who loved him, like Coach Thompson and his mom, and his close friends who he grew up with, that he hung with. Loyalty was the most important thing for that guy. So that, to me, that's a great characteristic, And
Coach Thompson meant the world to him, man. I know.
Yeah.
Like he owed his whole life to Thompson. Thompson pretty much saved him.
No question, because I'm a year older than Allen Iverson, and I remember him at camps, and I remember seeing him. When I was at St. John's, he was at Georgetown. So, I played against him in college. I played against him in Nike camp. I played against him, and a lot of events in high school. And the dude was just a tremendous athlete, man. And he was fearless, which is he played with a reckless abandon, where his speed was always used properly. He had a really high basketball IQ. He was a quarterback in high school, so he made great decisions on the court. And you couldn't guard him, man. You just couldn't stay in front of the guy. His speed was unbelievable. He was fast and quick at the same time, which sometimes guys can be fast or some guys can be quick. He was fast and quick.
Yeah. So let me ask you this: how was it playing with Dikembe Mutombo, a guy from a different country? Did you learn anything from him culturally or on that aspect?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, our lockers when we were in the Georgia Dome before Phillips Arena got built, my locker was next to his, in training camp and stuff like that. So I talked to the guy every day, because I was just mesmerized at his presence a lot of times, the way people respected him. And So I talk to him, I talk to Steve Smith, I talk to those veterans a lot just so that I can get the feedback on how to present myself as a corporation, as a, you know, as a product, and how to maximize the you know, my efforts to be able to negotiate, you know, when I was getting a contract, or being ready to play, and, you know, to get more playing time. How do I approach that instead of complaining? What do I need to do to prepare for it and be ready? So understanding that from a cultural standpoint with Dikembe, meeting his wife, meeting his kids, meeting his family, his brothers, his sisters, you know, that the closeness that they had was familiar to me and my family. So it showed that although we grew up continents away, family values had to be important to shape character, and it also shaped the way you treated other people. You know, people who don't have good home structure, people who don't have close knit families, cousins, you know, people you grow up with who are your first friends, to really teach you how to interact with people. Those are usually the people that are socially awkward, or they don't, you know, they don't get along with people, or they end up doing things out of the ordinary, or get that against the law. It's not to say that that's a generalization, but it's true. You know, your cousins and your relatives are your first friends, and how you treat them is usually how you treat the people you end up, you know, getting to know, and that grows into your network, which is, you know, most people don't understand how important a network of people can be valuable to you. The people that's in your network is probably why you're in the situation that you're in currently. And if you don't change your network and meet new people and get rid of some of the old people, you know, your situations really won't ever change.
Yes, facts, all facts right there. All facts.
Exactly. But yeah, but so when your career ended, tell us about, you know, life after. I know you did some coaching. Just share with us like what happened.
Yeah. So, you know, the after 2003 was my last year. The end of 2003, I finished up in Boston. We lost to the, what was that? We lost to the Nets. They played the Lakers in the finals again. You know, to start their three-peat. Well, they beat us, the Sixers, the year before. Then they won it again against the Lakers with Shaq and Kobe, against the Nets. I went straight into coaching. I coached at Fairfield University. Um, you know, it was a rough one because I was going through I was going through depression, actually, and didn't even know it. I lost my mother probably a year before that. I separated from my relationship with my oldest two children, their mom, and then I got injured, which to me at the time were the three most important things in my life: my family, my mom, my career. I lost it all in kind of a 3 to 6 month period, and usually people lose one of those things and have a tough time adjusting, and you know, you need to seek therapy. And I lost all three of them in the same year, and tried to just push it to the side and keep it moving. And it just got to the point where I couldn't move forward without healing. And it was a long process. It wasn't like I just figured it out. It took me about maybe 7 years to really understand that what depression was and how it affected you, taking, you know, medication to get my, you know, being diagnosed, and talking to the right therapist that can help you. And, you know, how do I make the adjustment to my current family? And, you know, it was a lot of things that I had to work on. So coaching wasn't something that I really enjoyed in the beginning. It was just something I thought I had. It was a natural transition. And I went into it because Coach K laid it out on the silver platter for me, and I didn't want to say no. But I think I'm a good coach because I make adjustments well. But I think at the time I wasn't focused because I was going through a depression, and not only just mentally but physically, because I was still nursing my injuries. I blew my knee out and I ruptured my Achilles tendon. So it was a tough transition for me leaving playing, from playing ball because I didn't leave on my own terms. I had a big contract sitting on the table that I couldn't accept, and that big contract meaning like 18 million, not 90 million, but 18 million to be a part-time starter, 6-man, in Boston at the time. And it was actually offered to me the year before in Philly, but I was injured, and then they traded me, and they kind of knew that my injury was unique and it would be tough for me to come back at the time because of, the surgeries, and they just got so many different techniques and different things that they've developed over the years. Nowadays, it would be different, but at the time, they didn't have anything that could help me heal faster. So it was a really tough, rocky road, but I ended up making it through. And around 2009, I went back into coaching. But during that time, I coached AAU and some high school teams and helped out, stuff like that, to work on my craft. I did a lot of basketball training with players, and that's where I worked with Malcolm and a couple of other guys. And then I coached at Indiana with Tom Crean, who was the current coach at Georgia. And that was going from my first experience of going through depression and coaching early, and then working for that guy. Oh my God, he made me not even want to coach anymore.
That man is oof.
In college, he made me not even want to coach anymore in college. Like I wanted to beat him up every day. But people would have looked at me not realizing he was a guy who was power hungry. Like I would never advise a kid to go play for that guy ever. And that's just it's my experience with him. But I just would never share with any parent to let your kid play for that guy. I think he's a narcissist, and I think he's, I don't think he's good for developing young people.
Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards, he played for him. So
yeah, he played, but Ant-Man was going to Georgia no matter who the coach was. Yeah, exactly. So that had nothing to do with Tom Crean. That was a Georgia thing. Now we're not letting this kid leave Georgia. And I bet you Ant-Man don't talk to him unless Tom is a guy. He's the type of guy that will be obnoxious and force you into a situation where you talk to him, and you'll be nice because it's the right thing to do. Unless you're me, where I'll tell him to get the hell out of my damn face. But but I can guarantee you they're not friends, and Ant-Man's not calling them for advice.
Yeah, I already know that. Like, Ant only stayed there for a year, just to get get drafted.
They knew. I mean, nobody. I mean, if he didn't have to go to college, he would never went to Georgia. You know what I mean? So,
I think him being from Atlanta and just being a Georgia kid. I mean, he could have went to Tech.
That's why I say he could have been Tech.
But that ain't the same.
You gotta think UGA is just
state
UGA.
School versus private school. UGA, most who live in Georgia went to UGA. Most people who went to Tech from California, New York, you know what I'm saying? Like they're
yeah, but far as the basketball program though, like Tech is more, well known for basketball.
Yeah,
than
but
UGA.
you gotta play Duke, you gotta play Carolina. You gotta play, you know what I'm saying? You gotta play Florida State, Georgia, you play Kentucky, Auburn's pretty tough. I mean, after that, who else I can be player of the year, Yeah. And so it was, for him, it was the choice he made, and he was good enough to get through it. If you were a guy, if you look at how many guys are leaving Georgia now or who decommitted or whatever, if you're not mentally strong and you don't have mental support, you won't be there that long, whether you leave to go to the pros or you just leave to go to another school right now under this administration. So it is what it is.
So let me ask you this real quick. Any advice to anybody that wants to be a young basketball coach? Any advice you can give them real quick?
Oh, yeah. Meet as many people in the business as you can. If you're young and you got, and you're, especially if you're still staying at home and you in school and college or whatever, do as much for free as you can. Get to know people. Don't be afraid to ask people for introductions to other people. Get a mentor of, ask. Don't be afraid to ask guys and keep in touch and email. Don't be afraid. Like what I mean is, every time the Hawks do a camp, you should, you got there. Every time they do a clinic, you got to be there, meeting all the coaches, high school coaches, get to know all the players in your area, so that all the best players, so that you have a chance, send them a message on social media, get to know them, so that if you ever get in a position where you can recruit them, they at least know who you are. So you have a leg up from a personal perspective, because most kids play for the coach they trust the most. Or unless, they get paid the most. Those really the only two choices that kids or families make a decision to go play at a different school. So I would just recommend grow the network, and don't be afraid to work for free in the beginning, and you'll make up for it on the back end.
Exactly. Right. One more question before we head up out of here. We talked about the current Hawks right now, Trae Young, Nate McMillan taking over the coaching staff right now. So, what do you think this squad can be? I know this year I already know we're gonna make playoffs. I'm gonna call it now. But what do you think this current squad? If they keep this squad intact, if John Collins doesn't go anywhere, we draft another good player this year. What do you think this squad can be within the next 3 years?
If they keep the same core group together and keep the pieces similar, I think they can be as high as a third seed in the East, and compete for that third, fourth spot with Milwaukee and well, Boston is, you would have thought Boston would have been up there, but they're like 10th or something now, I believe, 11th. But I think that they're one veteran, and not necessarily a LeBron James type player, but like a Jimmy Butler type player, a Paul George type player from being a conference championship team. I think with Trae Young, as good as he is, I think he, night in and night out, he has to tap into his potential every night for the Hawks to be as good as they need to be to win. And you can't do that on a nightly basis. You got to have, rest. And I think because he doesn't look as durable as he is. He looks fragile, being a small guy and not as athletic. But you need another guy like a Paul George, a guy, or if one of these guys can develop into a guy like that, that would be sufficient. But I think we're missing that one piece that's kind of, like I said, a Jimmy Butler at a Jimmy Butler level, to be able to make it over the top to become a conference championship type team.
Do you just one quick question? Do you think DeAndre Hunter?
I was about to say that.
That's my favorite. That's one of my favorite players on the team. So, do you think DeAndre Hunter can turn into a player like that? Or
I think he can. I just think it's time. He needs time. Defensively, I think he has the defensive prowess to be able to guard wings and guys that are a little bit bigger than him at the power forward spot. I think he shoots the ball at a high clip. I think he handles the ball at a high clip. I think his biggest thing is just development. It's going to take time for him to become that. And will the Hawks have everything in place when he becomes that they won't need something else? That's really the question. But I think DeAndre Hunter is an excellent player, and I think he does have the potential to be at a Jimmy Butler level of stardom. Like I said, it's just going to take probably another year or two, maybe 3, for him to develop and have the confidence to believe in himself that he can do that on a night in and night out basis.
So let me ask you this before we get out of here. Who's your NBA MVP?
Man, there's so many guys playing well right now. Oh man, I think the MVP is kind of. I think Joel Embiid. I would say Joel Embiid is an MVP candidate. I think Jokic is an MVP candidate. Obviously, LeBron. I didn't, every year you can argue that he's the best player in the league. You can argue Anthony Davis on his team is an MVP candidate. I think Chris Paul right now is an MVP candidate because of what he's doing with Phoenix Suns. I think James Harden is an MVP candidate. I think Kyrie Irving is an MVP candidate. Obviously, Durant would be if he played enough games, but he's not, so he's out of the question. So that's one less guy. Giannis is an MVP. I mean, it's just a lot of guys playing at such a high level that if I was going to pick MVP, I'd take Joel Embiid because I think he's more valuable. His team success, and second, I would probably go with Giannis because he kind of is the same thing. Like without him, I don't know if they're that good.
Yeah, I agree. I wasn't gonna bring up Cam Reddish, but since Cookie brought him up, what's your thoughts on Cam Reddish?
Oh man, Cam, I think very talented, man. Obviously being a Dookie, I got a lot of love for him, and I think until he embraces the defensive side of the ball, I think he's always going to be. It's going to stun his growth because obviously he's talented offensively, but I think it's too much pressure put on his offense, and his defense can make his offense a little bit easier. He has the ability to be. I would probably say a defender similar to a Paul George type defender. I think he has the ability to become like a Paul George type player who may not be a primary, team carry a team primarily, but he could be a second option. But a lot of that is confidence. A lot of that is ability and understanding, how to use the talent that you have. But embraces the defensive side of the ball, I think he's always going to stun his growth as a player.
I would agree with you there.
And that's what puts DeAndre Hunter over him in the Hawks is because DeAndre, from a defensive perspective, DeAndre Hunter is going to guard the guy that's across from him. And, Cam's going to get his steals in the lane. He's got, you can see flashes of his defense with his length. But he's not going to stop a guy, and which is hard to do already, but, make it difficult for them to get the shots they want to get on an in and out basis. And until that becomes a priority for him, I think he's going to always be that guy that teams see as potential. I hate the word potential because it just means you're not as good as you should be. But he has a lot of potential to be a Paul George type player. But Paul, like I said, Paul George is he really takes advantage of the defensive side of the ball, which also enhances his offense.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Hey man, appreciate you so much coming on, man. Once again, let everybody know, like who you are again. We know who you are, but it's a lot of young guys that watch the show that they don't know anything about 90s Hawks other than Mutombo and Blaylock.
Hey, this is Roshown McLeod, Hawks #1 picked number 20 in the 1998 draft, graduate of Duke University, Georgia resident, and I love the Hawks, and I love the organization, especially with Grant Hill being an owner and a lot of those Duke business guys at the top. I love basketball. I love growing wealth. I love family, and I love mentoring. I love coaching. I work in the community a lot with the Hawks. I work with an organization, Parents USA, where we are, currently working with families around the country, trying to find legal representation to help with things that happen with parents' rights and different things that aren't always taken seriously or taken for granted throughout throughout our country. So I try to put my hands in a lot of things. If I can be of help to anybody or any of service, find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram, find me on. I'm working on my Twitter account. You know, Don got me working on my Twitter account. So just reach out to me, man. A quick story. So my wife found a envelope with about maybe 75 letters from people from 20 years ago that sent me cards to sign. And my wife was going through the garage and throwing out papers and old stuff, just purging some things, and she saw it and she was like, "This is a shame. These people sent you this thing," and she got on me. So I ended up sending these cards back. I don't know if everybody got them, but I know a few people got them because they hit me on Twitter saying, "Thank you. I'm 30 years old and I sent this when I was 10, but I appreciate you sending it back."
Wow.
And they were just happy. And like I said, I'm normally good at that stuff. I don't know how that slipped through the cracks, but that's just the kind of guy I want to be, and I want people to see me as somebody that's willing to help. Not only myself, but help others grow and be a better version of themselves.
Well, hey man, you doing a lot. You're doing a lot for the community, and we hope you continue to do that. And we really appreciate everything that you've done for not just the organization of the Hawks, but just for the city of Atlanta. So,
No doubt. I appreciate you guys, man. Hey, keep up the good work, and I see y'all trying to get ESPN, like, man. I see that.
so we doing our thing over here, man. Appreciate it.
Fine. That would be a dream come true for me.
Yeah, for real. Well, keep working, man. You guys will be just fine. I appreciate what you're doing, keeping the city abreast on all the teams, because most people get caught up with the Hawks, the Falcons, maybe Georgia Tech, but they don't really necessarily understand about soccer and baseball and all the other things outside of the Braves. And I think that's really good, especially Georgia Southern. My son attended Georgia Southern for 3 years, so smaller schools giving them a little bit of notoriety. I think that's helpful. Seeing some young talent come out of those schools, man. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
You got it.
All right, everybody who watched live, thank y'all for watching the show live. If you're watching this at a later time, let us know in the comment section what your thoughts on Roshown. I had to throw that out there for him. But let us know what your thoughts on the show. If you watched him back in the day, or if you're a young cat, you want to see film of him, we can give you some links to his time at Duke with the Hawks and with 76ers as well. We will be back tonight to do a King's Realm. All right, and then we will be our draft prospect show will be.
It'll be like 4:30.
It's gonna be 4:30.
4:30.
Game on right
the
now.
game on. Yeah, the game on now. So y'all gonna try to go on and get it out the way. That's what's up. But yeah, draft prospect show will be this Thursday. We will be covering Trey Mooring for TCU. So be on the lookout for that. And next week we have another former athlete that's coming on the show. So look out for that as well. Thank y'all so much for supporting us. We really appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, you already know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, share this content out with Atlanta Sports Fanatics, and hit us up in the comment section. As always, come holler. It's your hometown sports podcast. What it done. Partners in crime, King and TJ. I got anything to say?
Love yourself, people. Yo, we winning. I am shocked that we are winning 24/7. If they keep if they keep this up, we can get out here with this win. And y'all know we're gonna be hype on King's Realm. I can tell you that. So it's gonna be one of those games that we can get a. They had a bad shooting night, and we had a good shooting night. Pretty much. Let's get it.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Later on the night, the Braves play. Get a dub. Hey, will all be well for us. So, y'all have a great afternoon. See y'all later. Peace out.